Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. So we are 2 days away from the NFL draft, technically 3 days if you are here in the UK, with it starting early hours on Friday morning. So with us being 3 days away, today's video we are going to talk about day 2 and 3 targets for the Browns, guys that I like, and kind of like the position groups that if the Browns were to target, the kind of guys that would be available on those days, the strengths and weaknesses and monster classes for day 2, day 3 of the draft this year. This is another part of my conversation with NFL draft expert, if I do say so myself, Jack BRENTNALL. If you haven't already checked out my video with him that I dropped yesterday, talking about the top of the wide receiver and offensive tackle classes in this year's draft, with obviously that being one of the biggest discussions on, anything to do with Browns social media draft talk this year. So if you haven't already, go check that out. But as I said, today's video talking with Jack about day 2, day 3 prospects and position groups, targets for the Browns, if where they'll be looking to go on that day 2 and 3. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Jack BRENTNALL. Day 2 and day 3, I kind of mentioned to you that these are two spots that I've not been as well versed in as previous years, just because I've been so caught up in with these 2 first round picks that the Browns have and what they're going to do with them. Don't get me wrong, my favourite day 2 prospect in the whole draft is D'Angelo Ponds, because I just love him so much. I watched him obviously a lot last year. As an Ohio State fan, you watch a lot of Big Ten football, and just seeing this guy on Indiana, don't get me wrong, I'm never going to do it in the first round at 5'9", but just someone that I absolutely am in love with. I can't explain it. I just love him as a player, love him as a prospect, love him as, just everything about him, as his personality, etc. Where do you think Ponds goes?
I think it'll be probably early to mid second round. I think he's definitely undersized, and I think he's going to be one of those where there will be a lot of teams that just will not have him on the board. I know, for example, like the Packers, they won't have him on the board. Just because he is too small. He is one of the most enjoyable players to watch, as you said. The weirdest thing about him is that he's 5'9" and whatever he is, 182, and he's maybe the best run defending corner in the class. He's an unreal tackler, which makes no sense. It just shouldn't work like that, but it does. I think he can hold up outside. I also think he can be really good nickel, because if you're going to be playing in the nickel, it's not because he's small. I think a lot of people are projecting him as a nickel because he's small. I think he can play outside. I love him as a nickel because I think he's really fluid, really explosive, and he is amazing against the run. So I'm like, okay, well, sign me up. That's what I want in a nickel. So I think second round. I mean, his testing was good. I think he'll be, top
99th percentile, I think, in both the 40, the broad jump, etc., stuff like that. I mean, this is just as athletic freak as you can get at 5'9" and 180. And I don't know if you the tape against Washington, and watching this guy go up against Denzel Boston, who is 6'4", and I had him pretty much winning most of those reps going up against the Denzel Boston, who, don't get me wrong, might be a bit more of a detriment than some people might have on Denzel Boston, like myself, and clearly you not having him in your top 5 like some people do. But I just think it speaks to just Ponds is someone that, yes, he's 5'9", I get it. Some people aren't going to have him on his board, I get it. That's why if he was 5'11", he goes first round, in my opinion.
100%.
It's just the outlier stuff and people might go, well, yes, he was this great in obviously run defense in college and all the tacklings, but is that going to translate? And I understand that people are going to have that. For me, I absolutely love this guy. The Browns need cornerback depth. The Browns need a good nickel. I mean, and you kind of said it there. I mean, he's small, so everyone's going to go, well, he has to play nickel, he has to play in the slot. I don't even think he took barely any reps.
28, I think it is. 28 snaps in the slot in his college
Pretty
career.
much exclusively played as an outside corner in college. And as you said, someone that I think can do it. everyone will go, well, if he does play outside, strictly it's going to just be outside zone. You just have to. And don't get me wrong, I understand that. This is a guy who has great eyes, has great feel for what a quarterback's going to do. So I completely understand that. But it's just one of those guys, and I have one every year. Harold Fanning was last year's guy where, everyone was telling me, no, the way he runs, all of this stuff. And I just said, that's an NFL player. And obviously Harold Fanning didn't quite have the outliers in terms of the physical traits that maybe a D'Angelo Pons has. But I just watch him play, and I just go, this guy's going to work. I feel whatever team does it is going to feel great about it. And I would be more than happy taking him at 39, if I'm completely honest. Because as I said, we need cornerback depth. We need a nickel. So I would be absolutely on board going with a Pons. But is there any value to be had in this cornerback class? Do you think, kind of after that, is this a class that maybe you could get a contributor past round 2, round 3, or do you think?
I think there's some names there that I like, less so like Nichols. I'm a big fan of Ephesians Prysock from Washington, not just because he has an amazing name, but he is a proper boundary corner. I think Devin Moore from Florida is good, but again, boundary guy. Chandler Rivers from Duke, he played outside in college. I think he will probably be similar reasons as Pons will move inside at the pro level. I also think, and I don't know where he's going to end up going, but another kind of candidate if the Browns want to get a nickel is Keontae Scott from Miami, who again is really physical in run support, plays like his hair's on fire, really fun player. So I think he could also be in play on day 2 if they decide they want to bolster their cornerback room.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Chris Johnson get mocked to us quite a lot, but as I kind of said there, if I'm doing it at 39, I'd rather just do Pons if he was there. And
I think Johnson will be. I think Johnson will be gone in the first round.
This is what I'm saying, and it's like they keep mocking him at 39, and it's just like, is he going to be? But even Pons, to be honest, I mean, I can say this about Pons, but is Pons going to be there at 39? I suppose is another question as well. I know Chris Johnson is someone that a few people are obviously very, very high on, and as I said, just is that going to be there at 39? Tight ends, obviously, the Browns have not released David Njoku, but technically released him because obviously the void years. He became a free agent. He has not been signed anywhere, so maybe he comes back. I don't know. I think it's unlikely, considering that he obviously posted an Instagram thing, basically, see you later, Cleveland. What do you think that this tight end class is? I mean, this is a tight end class that, don't get me wrong, obviously Kenyon Sadiq at the top, but other than that, I think a lot of people probably on the consensus big board, the next tight end is in the 50 range, I should probably say. So where do you have these tight ends in the kind of day 2, day 3?
Yeah, it's day 3 for me. I'm lower on Sadiq than consensus, and then the rest of the guys are all day 3. I have my tight end 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are all within like 20 spots of each other on my board. So it's kind of like if you can't get Sadiq, and I wouldn't probably get him for where he's likely to go in terms of I don't think the value would be there. Round 4 and round 5, I think there's real guys you could get who could be a real contributor. I think obviously Fanning's got a kind of very particular skill set, so I think if you were wanting somebody kind of complementary to that, I think Sam Roush from Stanford is a name to watch. I think Will Kazmarek could be another one from Ohio State. Again, another Ohio State guy. He's a true kind of blocking tight end, but I think could be a nice complementary piece to a guy like Fanning. And then like a deep sleeper who will probably go definitely will go day 3, probably late day 3. Lance Mason from Wisconsin, who I think again is another one who is he's a decent athlete. I don't think the testing necessarily did him any favours, but he's a decent athlete, but he's also a good blocker. So if they wanted to add a guy on day 3 to just kind of round out the room, I think he could be one.
What's your thoughts on Oscar Delp? Because I saw you actually stick up for this guy on Twitter. I think in one of your things, someone had him, and you kind of gave him a bit more credit than maybe the person was in the original post was giving him. What's your thoughts on him? Because I feel like he's someone that definitely has been kind of linked with the Browns. Obviously, Todd Monken, Georgia. Obviously, that's the simple one. But I do feel like it's someone that could come. You kind of mentioned it there with Fanning, who is a very interesting tight end, shall we say, in terms of where you can line him up. and I feel like bringing in Osterdelp that probably translates as more as an inline guy. I
Yeah,
feel like that can work quite
he's my
well.
tight end three. I think
Do you think he goes a lot earlier? Do you think?
I think he's probably kind of late third, fourth round. I think it's one of those where Sadiq will go, and then I think there'll be a big gap.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Probably almost as big as the gap between Jeremiah Love and the next running back, maybe even bigger. I don't know. Delp for me, he was really well, not necessarily misused, underutilized is probably the better way of
yeah,
putting
yeah,
it
yeah,
at
yeah.
Georgia. Really good athlete, and I think a guy who is capable of being a true three down tight end who can run routes, who is explosive enough to separate up the seam, but also can get the job done in line. I don't think he's necessarily a world beating blocker, but there are
Yeah,
reps,
yeah,
like
yeah,
the Mississippi State game in particular stood out as one where it's like, okay, this guy can really play. Um,
yeah,
so I think I wouldn't be expecting him to come in from day one and be like, right, okay, I want to give him, 60 targets or anything like that. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if it is let's bring him in, let's develop him. Tight end is always a bit more of a developmental position anyway, so I think he could be a good option. Like, probably I'd say probably like hopefully early day three, might require late day two.
I was going to say, I mean, Browns are sat there with 70 and 107. I think if they're going to do it, it's probably one of those two picks.
Yeah, he's
Someone
106
that
on my board, so that would be kind of
there we go. So, and as you
pretty
said,
much pretty much bang on.
someone that maybe might take a little bit of time, but they did go out and sign Jack Stoll in free agency. So not a receiving threat, shall we say, but someone that is obviously going to do the dirty work in that kind of tight end room. So that affords him a bit more time. It's not like he's coming in and going, well, you have to play next to Fanning every single snap and every single time we're in those personnel sets. So Osterdelp's has been someone that has obviously caught my eye with kind of the where he stands as a prospect and where he could obviously go and fit in with the Browns. One more just prospect guy before, because I want to get your thoughts on kind of like the D line rooms, but not like the actual guys themselves, but just kind of where you think that if there's any value to be had. But just one more actual guy. Okay, I lied. Two more guys. Chris Bell. Where does Chris Bell stack up for you? Because this is someone that's like I felt so good about, and then obviously tears his ACL, and I mean, is he going to be ready for camp? That's obviously going to be the question mark. It's completely ruined his whole draft process. Where do you think he kind of slots into this?
He's a really difficult one to rank, to be honest. He's my wide receiver 9,
Yeah,
which is kind of where is it on my board? He's 48th on my board, and I've got a kind of true second round grade on him.
yeah,
Obviously, amazing size, 6'2", 222. Incredibly explosive. I'd expected him to have run in the 4.3s.
yeah,
He's there's not many guys. I mean, watch the Miami game. There's a catch he has underneath, and he just turns at such speed, and then just takes it to the house, runs between all these guys before they can even make a play. There's not many players that you can watch that ever make a play like that.
yeah,
So there's the uncoachable traits. I think he's a really good after the catch threat. I think he's good at finding kind of soft spots in zone. The slight concern for me is obviously there's the injury. He's a little limited as a route runner in terms of kind of his suddenness, but also the kind of routes he was running at Louisville. That doesn't mean he can't develop, but he's not really ever been used as a true downfield guy, which is odd for a guy who's built like. I mean, he's built like and has the speed of DK Metcalf.
yeah, yeah,
But he's not like or an AJ Brown type or a
yeah.
I mean I've heard the Xavier Legette comps, which is definitely what you say if you don't like him.
Yeah.
But like he's built like those guys who all, regardless of how you thought of them as players and as prospects, they win downfield.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a bit of a weird one, but I think as a developmental guy on day 2, I think could be really good.
Yeah, and just finally on him, would if you were whether it's the Browns or whether the Packers, whatever, if you were sat there as a team, would you feel more comfortable taking him, let's say, round 2, and obviously hoping that the injury is okay, or would you feel more comfortable doing that or drafting like a Brazil? Like, is there a gap between a Chris Bell and a Brazil where you go the injury factors in, or would you take Chris Bell?
I'd take Bell. The injury is factored into where he is on that board, so I'd have him. yeah, fairly decent gap, not massive, but a decent gap between them. I think with it being an ACL, it's not ideal, and he will miss kind of parts of his training camp and things. But they are injuries that are much more kind of easy to recover from now with how things are. We see it all the time. So
Yeah.
I think long term prognosis is probably fine. So if you're thinking about this as like a 4 year rookie deal, I'm comfortable with maybe him missing
Yeah.
the first couple of months of his rookie season.
Yeah, I mean he's always been the guy for me that if you do wide receiver in the second round, that's who I would be looking at targeting. Whether that's you're doubling up because you did wide receiver at 6 and you want to get another one at 39, maybe as you said, maybe not quite the full package, but a bit more specialist as a guy that can win downfield with obviously all the physical traits that obviously you hope can translate into the NFL. Or maybe you wouldn't feel as great about it if he was the only wide receiver or the first wide receiver you took, but I feel like you could do a lot worse at that spot than a Bell. And then finally on a specific player, someone that I've also kind of felt myself falling in love with a little bit. I wouldn't even be that surprised if you haven't scouted him because I'm not entirely sure if he gets drafted. I think he'll get drafted just because of as I said, some of the traits. But Riley Nowakowski out of Indiana. Todd Monken has come to this team, and I look at Riley Nowakowski and I go, there's my fullback. I am just all of the traits that this guy has, I feel like can translate to a guy that I am genuinely not going to be surprised if he was a Pro Bowl fullback. What do you think about? I mean, I know he's technically a tight end. I mean, he started as a linebacker, I think, in Wisconsin. Do you think A, he gets drafted, and B, do you think if he does, it is just with the idea of converting this guy to a fullback or maybe H-back as well?
Yeah, I think he'll be that kind of fullback H-back type. He can play in line. He's got an odd build because he's 6'2" and he's
really odd
got
build.
really short arms. So it is a bit of a kind of sawn off. He's like the Reuben Bain of tight ends or fullbacks. But he is one of the most tenacious blockers in the class. His mentality is just like off the charts. He wants to finish plays every time. You watch Indiana, it's not hard to spot him, not least because he wears like 37 or 34 or something, some weird number where it's like an odd that stands out for that. But he's really good at kind of climbing and playing in space as a blocker, which is obviously important if you're going to be playing fullback. I think he's a decent kind of underneath weapon. He didn't really have any production until this season when he was at Indiana. But was solid, like average like 12 yards a catch, I think, this year. So a useful guy. I think like there's some limits in terms of the athleticism. He's never going to win any kind of beauty contest in that sense. I think he tested okay, but I didn't really see it on tape. But I think he could be one of those guys that he won't be drafted highly, but because he can do a bit of everything in terms of that fullback, H-back, tight end, I think he'll stick around, especially a guy who can add value on special teams as well. Which day 3 of the draft, like you better be able to play special teams.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just I watched this guy. I look at the Browns, as I said with Todd Monken. I mean, we're sat there with 3 fifth-round picks, I think, a 6th-round pick and a 7th-round pick. I'm like, one of those picks should be this guy because I just feel like it can come in. How many guys can you get in that day 3 range that could actually be a contributor on your offense from week 1? I feel like if you're able to get one of these guys, you should go and get it. And as you said, I don't think he's ever going to be Pat Ricard because he just doesn't have the athleticism that Pat Ricard has. I mean, Pat Ricard's a unicorn. He's like 6'2", 300 pounds. He's an absolute unicorn at that position. But I feel like he could be Pat Ricard light, shall we say, someone that can come in. I mean, not quite as heavy and same height, but I think he's 250 or 260.
250, yeah.
So not quite as heavy as obviously a Pat Ricard, but someone that I just think could maybe be that kind of Pat Ricard light, be that next fullback that goes and makes a couple Pro Bowls that no one expects, that got drafted in the 7th round. And as I said, obviously watching a lot of Indiana last year. I mean, I'm pretty sure he had a touchdown in the national championship game. So someone can correct me if I'm wrong there, but I'm pretty sure he did. So you could say this guy can step up in big moments, I suppose. But no, just one of those players, as you say, everyone kind of has those crushes. And I mean, will the Browns do it? He's a 6th-year player at college, so he's going to be 24. I think he might.
He's definitely he's on the older side. Yeah.
So Browns obviously notoriously have stayed way away from that. I mean, they wouldn't touch this guy in day 1 or day 2. No. But with Todd Monken coming in, a change of philosophy that could obviously influence Andrew Berry slightly. And when we're talking day 3, I think this is a guy that the Browns should absolutely target. Just to wrap up and kind of put a bow on this kind of day 2, day 3 kind of discussion. Just a couple of other positions that the Browns may be looking to find depth in, and I think that's linebacker and defensive line. Where do those position groups stack up in terms of, depth within this class? Is there guys to be had in these mid to late rounds, or is it a weak class where it's just the top?
I think linebacker. I think there's some interesting guys on kind of the top end of day 3. There's guys like Caleb Elam-Zor from TCU,
Yeah.
Keyshawn Elliott from Arizona State, and then you got very different flavors. I mean, he might end up going a bit earlier, but Kyle Louis from Pitt, which is,
Yep.
I mean, some people have him as a safety. He is
Yep.
not your traditional linebacker.
Not to the Browns on a tankathon.
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
So he could be an interesting one. Bryce Betcher from Oregon is a really fun linebacker. He started his career playing college baseball. He got drafted last year in the MLB. Decided to come back and play more college football, and I think will get drafted kind of mid-day 3. Very explosive athlete, a little bit undersized, but a good feel for coverage. And then defensive line, I think there are guys. Maybe there's a couple of guys like, again, day 3 that I think would be interesting depending on what you're looking for. You've got guys like Nick Barrett from South Carolina as a defensive tackle who he's pretty much only a run stuffer, but he'll be a very good run stuffer.
That's fine with us. We've got Malik
Which
Collins and
has
Mason Graham.
value. DeMonte Capehart from Clemson is kind of similar, tested off the charts, but again, like a proper run stuffer. And then kind of guys like, I mean, some of these guys might end up actually sneaking into day 2. You've got Kieron Crawford from Auburn, who is kind of the opposite of Keldrick Folk. He's a bit undersized, but he's really, really explosive and refined as a pass rusher. Caleb Proctor from southeastern Louisiana, who is your kind of gap shooting 3-tech. And then another guy who I really like, and I'm definitely a lot higher on the consensus, but will go day 3, I think, is Landon Robinson from Navy, the defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Very undersized. He's 5'11", so I mean, there's not many guys. I think I've scouted this year in terms of the edge and the defensive tackle group. I've got 32. No, I haven't. I've got 56 players watched. I don't think there's anybody else under 6 foot. So that's going to be a stickler for some. But I mean, he's always winning the leverage battle. He's really explosive, very good athlete, and I think he anchors pretty well. So those are a few names that I think I like later on. I don't think either group, both, I think especially defensive tackle, I don't think has the blue chip guys, and I don't think they've got really many in terms of kind of high quality starters this year. But the value is more likely in the later rounds, which is good if you're a team that's not looking to spend a premium pick on it, because that's where you can get value.
Literally, and as I said, I mean, that's the spot the Browns are in. I mean, if they go and use a premium position on a defense, a premium pick on a defensive tackle or a linebacker this year, then I think a lot of people are going to be scratching heads. Obviously, after taking Mason Graham number 5 last year, and obviously taking the reigning defensive rookie of the year, Carson Schlesinger, at 33. I did lie. One final question that I have, just because I completely forgot to mention it. Connor Lew at centre, I think, is obviously someone that is getting mocked to the Browns a lot. The Browns are in a position where it's not like it's a need per se. They do have Luke Whippler in there. Obviously, they signed Elton Jenkins, you'll know a lot about. Don't get me wrong, I prefer him at guard. But if you do need to play him at centre, that is obviously an option. Do you think Connor Lew offers enough as a prospect that if he's there at 70, and as I kind of mentioned there, the Browns do have some options, but they're maybe not fixated on a guy. Do you think he's good enough as a prospect to take in that spot with them being, kind of with those circumstances?
I think so. I have him 67 on my board. I've got him as a kind of functional, solid starter type player. I don't think he's going to be a game changer. I was quite excited for him this year. There was a lot of buzz coming into to 2025, but obviously tore his ACL, so was kind of limited. But I think a guy who I think could be a starter. I think when you get past him, the other centres in the class, they're probably going to go day 3. There's a couple of guys I like, but they are kind of a bit more in terms of like that kind of borderline starter. Matt Gulbin from Michigan State is maybe a guy to watch because he played guard at Wake Forest, and then played centre at Michigan State. So again, if you want a guy like Jenkins, where you can go, okay, let's get these guys on the line, and then we can kind of move them around as we need to in case of injuries, a guy like Goulburn might be an interesting one.
But I think that is just where it comes to me with the centre. Is like, because 70 is, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not the premium pick, but it is a top 100 pick, and I see it getting mocked to the Browns a lot. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be against it. I mean, a starting centre is a starting centre, wherever you get him from. But I just feel like the kind of circumstance the Browns are in, the kind of versatility they currently have on that line with a couple of guys that could step up into that role, I'm just not entirely sure I'd be willing to spend that pick on a Connor Lew. I mean, who knows? They might end up spending that pick on like a Markel Bell if they pass on a tackle. So obviously, however they go with that. But thank you so much, obviously, Jack, for giving me your thoughts. I mean, it's quite rare you can get someone to come on and talk about day 2 and day 3 draft prospects. As I said, I've not done nearly enough work as I should have this year on these guys. So I really do appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that.